The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Thanks for hanging out. Welcome back to us. Monday edition. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Hour one wide open for you. A lot to get to from Coach Matt Rhule. Nebraska's first scrimmage. We may even dive into a little LSU Iowa. Twitter's been on fire the last 24 hours with several reactions with LSU's win. Some misguided. Some very misguided. So we'll get their numbers to dial up at 489-1240, 489-1240, 402-489-1240, 800-825-5865. Ways to contact us. Can email the show, Chris at hailvarsity.com. Find us on Twitter, Chris Schmidt at Schmidt_radio, or Elijah Herbel at Herbelessence, and can watch the show on your mobile device. Real easy to do. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio, and KFOR Facebook and Twitter, KFOR Sports. So let's get into it. Hey, just pretty good vibes all around from Coach Rhule, and just touching base with some of the former guys that were able to see practice, and you have a pretty unanimous reaction from guys who've done it before and done it at a high level. There's a large contingent. You heard Aaron Graham talk about it with us last week. Guys are working, and that seems obvious. That seems normal, but it's happening, and that's a good thing for Nebraska football again, where guys are working, guys are getting better, guys are learning from mistakes, but it's not watching, it's working, and that's a big takeaway, Elijah, with how the scrimmage was. The scrimmage had live hitting, cool. The scrimmage had live tackling, really cool. And the scrimmage had live quarterback run. That's fantastic. Those are all things that Matt Rhule made sure, and we'll hear from Rhule in about 15 minutes, that he conveyed. This is still a team that's a work in progress. They don't have a depth chart. Guys are in there trying to figure things out. And above all, Elijah, you have a constant ideal of mobility, not just from the quarterback spot, but, oh, yes, also from your defensive line and your offensive line. Those are things that matter. Those are things that are necessary, and that's been a shift here with some of the strength and conditioning. You're going to have the opportunity, the way guys are getting trained to be more mobile on the lines of scrimmage, be more athletic, do so on the defensive line as well. And that'll be a big key. I don't have the right answer with what it is going to take on the defensive line against a Big Ten run offense in November. I know you got to be big. I know you got to be strong. But I also know you can't be you have your feet in cement either. So one of the guys we're looking forward to have a breakout season or a better season is Nash Hutmacher, the polar bear, right? Can you turn some of that strength and mix in some better mobility? And that's been a theme for Rhule, and he's talked about it. He's talked about recovery and the idea of a pro-style offense with a mobile quarterback that is going to be able to run and pick up some yards on third down, extend a play, or hell, even execute a quarterback-designed run. Whatever the situation is, injuries happen. That's a byproduct of having a quarterback that is a ball carrier. You need to be able to have guys behind your starter that are able to step up and go perform if you're going to ask your quarterback to run. Really like Sam McEwen's column, The Rewind, with the topic of mobile quarterback play. We'll get into that in a little bit as well, but I think the plan is sound. It's just a matter now of refinement, and another live scrimmage that Nebraska had on Saturday is a great thing for this football program, and that's echoed by a number of players liking what they see. And listen, it's how it's supposed to be, but it's not always how it is in college football because of your contact issues. You have limited days you can have contact. Coach Rule outlined that. There's like 4 different tiers of what you're allowed to do. So you better be really good when you're allowed to hit or get guys comfortable. Get them ready for Saturdays, right? That's the whole point and purpose, and it can be a build. And part of that builds this spring session with Matt Rule and how he wants to go about practice.
And the key with the contact is you have to do it in a way that prepares the guys while not endangering them too much, and also
have fun with that coin flip, right?
Yeah, it's so tough. And also, in addition to that, you also have to be able to find ways to get guys contact and get them reps in a way that's going to help them when the full pads are on, whenever they're not allowed to be in full pads, they're not allowed to have full contact. And I'm not a football coach, therefore I'm not going to tell you the best way to go about that. That is not my wheelhouse. I'm not going to do it. And I could even say the same about trying to find a way to get guys going through full contact and still keeping them healthy. But as you said, that's the importance of depth, and that's the importance of having a strong 2-deep. And whenever you look at Nebraska's roster right now, there's too many positions on this roster where I think 1 or 2 injuries can completely derail not only a position group, but potentially a season.
Or a side of the ball.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. If you have 2 of your projected starters right now go down along the offensive line, I am terrified about what that offensive line is going to be next year. We were talking last week about the rumors surrounding Ben Scott, and Matt Rule said that injury wasn't as bad as they first feared. It sounds like he's only going to be out a week. But look at, say, Ben Scott goes down, and then you say, I don't know, Nuri goes down, and he's down for the year, or Turner goes down, or Bryce goes down. There's options there where you get scared if a guy like that goes down. But the number one position I look at is a place where you're probably going to need that full 2-deep. It's a position I've talked about a lot this spring, the interior defensive line. If you have an injury along the interior defensive line, things are going to look very, very dicey for you this season. Say, and God forbid this happens, but say Ty Robinson goes down. He has a knee injury that holds him out for a while, and I'm just throwing this out there. This is not me trying to throw this out into the world. You're not going Costanza. You're not willing it into existence. I'm not trying to manifest it.
No, you're just saying bleep happens. People get hurt in football. People get hurt in football when you tackle.
I mean, think about how different that defensive line looks for the entire season if Ty Robinson isn't out there. Think about how different.
Well, they're getting guys ready now because he ain't out there now.
Yeah, but still, with what you have in the defensive line right now, it's a scary prospect. You hope that some of those issues get alleviated when he's back, but if he's out for a whole year, you're in danger. There's just a lot of worry. I don't want to say worry.
There's risk.
There's a lot of risk,
risk.
That comes along with practicing full contact, full pads. And we had a coaching staff that was here at Nebraska last time around that was on the cautious side of that, and you saw the results on the football field. So it's almost to me a necessary evil. The contact that you have in practice. Yes, injuries are going to happen. Yeah, you're going to lose guys for the season because you're going full contact to practice, but your team is going to be better in the long run because of it. And it's about riding that fine line of endangering your players in a way that is safe and necessary and not putting them into a place where you're giving them risk for unnecessary injury. And it's, you know what? Have these guys well rested when they do full contact. And again, as I said, I'm not a football coach. So I don't know the exact ways to go about it, but it's a fine line this coaching staff is riding.
It's really, it comes down to preparation. In the name of preparation, you are going to inflict a hard level of physicality on your football team if you want them to be worth a damn against PJ Fleck week 1, or when Michigan comes to town on September 30th, when you go see Coach Bielema right after Michigan, and then when you end things with Wisconsin, when you end things with Iowa. Everyone else that's worth their salt in the Big Ten that's risen is because they are finding a way to get their guys sharpened, mean, and rough and tough. And the teams that fall back in the Big Ten, it's because they don't have the bodies or they just aren't able to prepare as well through physical play. You can get away with being too fast not to get hit. That can work.
I mean,
that's worked a lot. That works a lot in the Rose Bowl when the Pac-12 team carves up a Big Ten team.
And Ohio State gets through the Big Ten year long on their talent and their speed until, at least for the past 2 years, Michigan comes down and their rough and tumble physical brand of football
on the line of
is able to win in that game. And it's been 2 years now that I've said, and I feel confident in saying this, Ohio State has walked into that game being the more talented team, but Michigan's walked out the victor because they're the tougher, more physical team. And at the end of the day, that is your formula for success in the Big Ten. And Michigan, they've dealt with injuries. They've had guys go down, maybe not season enders to key guys, but you've had guys go down in practice and miss games, guys go down in games even, because that's what comes along with playing physical football. Injuries are going to happen. That's what comes with the game itself. It's about preparing your guys in a way that, as I said, balances that safety with what's necessary.
You had previous administrations that were just too worried about worst case, and I get it. And even when you tried to protect it, you still had a really, really good quarterback get dinged. You had fumble problems because the guys weren't live, and it's hard to take care of the football if you're a running quarterback and you're not getting hit in practice. And listen, Nebraska previous regimes aren't the first, nor will they be the last to not let their quarterbacks get hit. I totally understand it. But I know places like Alabama, specifically Georgia, those places have their quarterbacks live. Now, Georgia's a little different because they don't ask their quarterbacks to run, but Bama sure as hell has when they've switched to more of the mobile quarterback, which leads us into the offensive topic here and where Nebraska wants to go for the fall. And we've talked a lot about the quarterback race, and you heard good things on Sims. You've heard good things on Chubba. You've heard good things on Harburg, and you'll hear more again in a little less than 10 minutes from Coach Rule on his quarterback's performance. But I like this idea of a pro-style offense and also the quarterback run. We're both fans of the quarterback run as long as you can keep your quarterback healthy and have a running back or a running back room. You can even go committee here. You can find your dude and you can find your role for other guys. But above all, have a running back room with an offensive line you're committed to. And you've got to be just an outstanding offensive line with depth, with a swing guard, with a swing tackle, with a backup center in the Big Ten if you want to go pro style. And this was part of Sam's story, who's been really good on the lines of scrimmage? Well, it's been Michigan. They have a mobile, but not necessarily running quarterback. Mm-hmm. Iowa sure as hell does not have a mobile quarterback, but they've been pro style, and then more times than not, they turn out good offensive line, or after a year together, by a second or a third year together, Iowa's lines have been good. It's a surprise when Iowa's not running for 200 yards a game. Coach Bielema, he's got a pro style quarterback that's a little mobile, that's mobile enough, can move around in the pocket, roll out, not necessarily a quarterback run, but they're going to feed the ball and slam you for 4 quarters.
I mean, the one running team I can think of that does utilize a lot of quarterback run in the Big Ten is probably Minnesota, and that was less with Tanner Morgan and more once Callie McManus came in and took the reins towards the end of the year. Morgan got out there sometimes, but that's really like the main rough and tumble physical Big Ten offensive line that I think of that does utilize running quarterback. It's Minnesota, and I don't think Minnesota would be able to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Michigan and Iowa and Wisconsin if it wasn't for that running quarterback factor. I'm not trying to discredit their offensive line. They have some great offensive linemen. Searles represents one of them, and John Michael Schmitz. They have a good offensive line, but I think that quarterback run allows them to be able to do more with that rushing attack and leads it to actually be able to go toe-to-toe with
it diversifies it. You got to worry about both. And to be honest, if Nebraska's trending towards this where they want to be pro style, they want to have good tight end play, they want a good offensive line where they can rely on a run game, but that little extra something is the mobile quarterback. Whoever wins the quarterback race, and you got Casey Thompson and Logan Smothers out right now, Both those guys are very good athletes. Logan's more the mobile guy. Casey, not so much. He's more your pocket guy. But Casey's got the ability to be a running quarterback. That will be very necessary for him when it comes to winning the quarterback race. You know what Sims is? Sims is a guy that is, when he's pressured, he'll tuck and run and scramble. Same with Chubba. Same with Harburg. There's some athleticism and a running element to all three of the guys that are working now. Whoever emerges, it's going to be taking care of the football. Somebody that's competent, obviously, with knowing the offense. That's first and foremost. But what can they give you in the running threat? And to me, that's a need for Nebraska. Well, who's on the line?
We got Pete on the line.
Have Pete hang on. We'll get to Pete so we aren't cutting him off. Pete, hang on the line. Numbers to get in, 489-1240. But the quarterback run portion of things with this Nebraska offense, is it something that is necessary to you as a Nebraska fan? You love it because, well, you smile. And statistically speaking, the couple of years Nebraska has not had the running quarterback. Year one under Whipple, don't run, son, stay in the pocket. And 1 year under Riley, 2017, your offense really struggled to score 21 a game. We'll continue on. More thoughts on the spring, thoughts from Coach Rule. Hail Varsity with you on a Monday. We're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Crew wants you to make sure to not trash talk Iowa. We'll get into Iowa and the topic of trash talking here in about 15 minutes. And, man, that was intense over the weekend with the women's Final Four.
Well, Crew says Iowa's going to be electric this year. That's a bridge too far, I'd say.
That's a bold statement, but based on what their offense put up a year ago, he ain't wrong, comparatively speaking. He ain't lying.
They just need 24 game to be electric.
Yeah, no kidding. We'll get into the latest on Dylan Raiola. What's the smoke signals saying? And let's listen to Coach Rule real quick and get his comments from post Saturday. First and foremost, how did the scrimmage go on Saturday? We kind of laid out what the word is. It's live, it's physical, there's hitting, wonderful. That's the way it should be for a lot of Nebraska fans. But more of a report from the man there leading things, Coach Rule.
I think we finished right at about 40 for the ones and 40 for the twos, based on the kind of the two O-lines. And then we practiced for like, 45 minutes before we even went out to scrimmage. So we practiced in Hawks. You guys have seen how we do the ball security circuit, warm-up stretch, individual, special teams. We had a couple hundred, 300-400 high school coaches here. So individual, special teams, one-on-one, 7-on-7. And then kind of took a little halftime and went over the scrimmage. And we probably got close to 90 plays, maybe 85, 90 plays. So quarterbacks were live. We tackled quarterbacks today and got a lot of good work in. Looked like we came out of it pretty healthy, too, which is always important.
That is huge. More so, how'd the offense perform? And it was a good day. Really good day for the offense versus the Nebraska defense.
The offense really moved the ball well today. The offense looked ahead of the defense. I think a lot of it was the quarterbacks running. You get to practice and the quarterback drops back and we blow it dead. Well, today, they had to try to hit Heinrich, had to try to hit Chubba, had to try to hit Jeff, try to hit Richard, and then they bounced off it and ran for big long plays. So that added in a dynamic that we haven't really exposed to the defense. But I thought it was not a ton of penalties, and we looked like a pretty clean. We had Big Ten officials, so it was good to get all that kind of in the stadium. It's my first time coaching in that stadium, so it's pretty cool.
And while Rule talks about that quarterback run and it brings another element, we had Pete on the line. He had to go. He had other obligations during this segment. So Pete, we apologize having to cut you off like that, but he did want to pass along the point that he wants to see if it's quarterback run is what you're emphasizing at Nebraska, he wanted to make sure that's not scrambling. He's like, are you going to design quarterback runs? Are you going to run the quarterback like that? Or are you going to use it in a way that it's the quarterback drops back and, they're in man coverage, now the quarterback's going to run? Because that's not what his idea of a quarterback run is. And Schmitty, I think you wanted to get your take on just that, what it looks like.
I don't care what it looks like. I mean, yeah, if there's some option play, that's probably a skill set, at least the clip of video we've seen this spring for Harburg, that orbit option, okay? Is Richard Torres going to be asked to go run the option? You probably don't do that. I don't know that Casey Thompson can't, but he's not typically been a running quarterback. A zone read here and there, 6 touchdowns last year. He's got that ability, and he scrambled to keep some plays alive with his eyes downfield, or he scrambled enough to pick up some yards, but rarely. Sims is more the guy, if he can stay healthy, that is your dual threat. He's a gifted passer, strong arm. The accuracy is always a work in progress for any quarterback, right? Especially a quarterback that's battled some injuries, not as much time on the field. So, no, I don't care if the quarterback's having to escape the clutches and he turns it into a first down. That's typically what happens when you're dropping back to pass. I think Pete's point is, well, let's hope the O-line's a hell of a lot better so he has time to throw versus him running for his life. Mm-hmm. And what Nebraska had a problem with is the O-line didn't either have the faith from Whipple, or even you go back to some of Scott's years, they didn't have a running back that was a dude, or they didn't play a running back that was a dude. So let's let Adrian run it 70 times. Let's let McCaffrey run it 70 times. Find a running back and an O-line that can be your primary source of ground game. Mm-hmm. But don't shy away from using the quarterback. You need that balance.
Yeah, well, I see his point in that scrambling and design quarterback runs stresses the defense in two completely different ways. Where the design quarterback runs, the defensive line, the linebackers are reading the run steps from linemen. It's linemen getting upfield. They know it's not going to be a pass, and you have to account for the quarterback. You need a guy that is, you know what, he's going to watch the quarterback here, and it almost takes him out of the play, gives you some numbers advantage in the box whenever you're running the football, whereas a scramble more stresses the defensive line and how they're able to pass rush. You can't use as many blitzes. You can't use as exotic as blitzes whenever a quarterback is able to scramble, because your rush lanes are very important in that time. That
stay in there, it's good night.
Yes, yeah. You know what? If your defensive end beats a guy off the edge, that's all fine and good until you're against a scrambling quarterback who's now able to exploit the fact that your defensive tackle didn't get far enough upfield. Now he's gone for 30 yards.
You better get him.
So it stresses the defense in two different ways, and I think they each have their own place in an offense, especially one that, you know what, you might need to hide the offensive line for a year or two because their development isn't where you want it to be. So I see his point there, but I think both of those have a very valuable place in an offense, and you can see that in a place like Baltimore. And we've talked about Baltimore, the Ravens, on the year a ton, but you've seen the way that their run game has been opened by Lamar Jackson's ability to beat you with your legs on the ground. And then, you know what? Their passing game also gets opened up by the fact that you need to leave a quarterback spy in the box to make sure Lamar Jackson isn't beating you with his feet whenever he drops back to pass. And you can see the two different ways it stresses the defense. So I think they both have a place in a modern offense, especially in college football.
Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, two prototypes, can be pro style with that quarterback run element. How did the quarterbacks perform? A little bit more from Rule.
I thought they played really well. They all bring something different to the table. So, I think we probably turned the ball over twice. So some things we have to correct. But we got a lot of good situations. We got third down. We got 2 minute. We got red zone. And I thought for the most part they played really well. And again, that added dynamic that they bring, some of the guys bring of being able to run. So when Richard's in there, we do some different things with Richard. When Heinrich's in there, we do some different things with him. And I was really pleased with the quarterbacks today.
So be adaptable. What's the skill set of your signal caller with who you're going with? A thought here from Rule on just where he's at this point in the spring. He's pretty happy with his squad, but still a lot of work to do.
I've been really pleased with everybody. I guess I think maybe Justin, like I just talked about, I really like all of our backs. I think our backs is one of our strengths. I think they all bring something different to the table. Omar Brown's been a guy that's really coming on. So there's a lot of guys. But, you've heard me talk about A.J. Rollins. So I think, I haven't had a chance to watch this tape yet. This will be a really big evaluation for me. Again, not evaluation in terms of, or trying to get the guys past like, are we good, am I bad? Just hey, what can we do to help each player play a little bit better? So I didn't give you a great answer there. I'm sorry.
A couple thoughts on Solich before we turn to Dylan Raiola. One, Coach Rule asked about Frank and the return for the spring game.
Oh, I'm so excited. Coach Solich, when I was the offensive coordinator way back when at Temple University, he was the head coach at Ohio. And he's quick to remind me that every time when we went out there, we played him for the championship. He beat us. He beat us every time. And I really loved, everyone knows him here. Like, he was running this offense, the Nebraska offense at Ohio, and then he morphed into like a spread, but it still was the same principles, you know what I mean? So whereas he wasn't using the fullback anymore, he was still the same series offense and all the great things that they did here. So I always have a lot of respect for coaches who are able to extend their success by adapting to different times. And so I've had some great conversations with Coach. I think it's really important for me to figure out how to win here. And so the best way you can do that is talk to Tom Osborne, talk to Frank Solich, talk to Coach Pelini, talk to the guys who've won here, And so, in fact, Coach knows my affinity for the fullback. So he texted me during the Michigan TCU game. I think the first play Michigan hit a play, and all of a sudden I got a text from Coach Solich. He's like, "See, I told you the fullback. So there's still a place for the fullback." And so I think it's awesome that he's coming back.
A little bit more on that answer from Coach Rule.
That's what this time, I think, is all about for Nebraska. It's not about, the eras that we played in or it's just about Nebraska. You know what I mean? So whether you played for the former players, my message has been, and I humbly say this, right? But whether you played for Coach Devaney, whether you played for Coach Osborne, whether you played for Coach Callahan, whether you played for Coach Pelini, whether you played for Coach Riley, played for Coach Frost, or now played for Matt Rule, you played for Nebraska too. And so I think the power of this job is that you could, if the state unites, and everyone's for Nebraska. And so Coach coming back, I think, is just such a pivotal moment in that. Coach speaking last night is such a pivotal moment in that. And I'm unbelievably grateful to him for doing it.
So that united front from all different factions is important because it's been a messy family reunion with all this transition over the years. You've had someone ticked off or not agree with who the new guy is, or there's been support sour after an extended period of time. That's trying to be nipped in the bud right now, and a good way to kick that off is by bringing Frank back.
And a little part of that answer that may get glossed over by a lot of people, but that stood out to me, was just how easily he reeled off every head coach in Nebraska dating back to Devaney. One of those little things where
here's your history.
It doesn't stand out. It's not super important to the average person that is talking about Husker football to be able to do that. But to have your head coach be well-researched enough on his history of Nebraska that he's able to quickly, easily, there wasn't any thinking. You can see the look in his eyes whenever he said it if you watch the press conference. He had that down pat. He knows the history of Nebraska football. It's not because, he's trying to go impress people at a press conference. I don't think that's why he's going and listing off. I think it's because that's important to him, and he understands that the history of a place like this is very important when you're trying to do a rebuild. And the fact that he's done his research and he knows every head coach in Nebraska dating back to Devaney, even the ones that fans would like to forget about, just speaks to his level of preparation whenever he took this job, and then his first couple months on the job, how important it's been for him to understand what this place is all about.
Let's get into Dylan Raiola. What is the latest on Dylan Raiola? Well, we spent a lot of time last week about where the smoke is drifting, and it sounds and feels like Georgia might be your leader now. You listen to or you see what some of the national recruiting analysts say. What do we think? Where are things headed? And what's the recourse if you're Nebraska? We'll have some thoughts on that here shortly. The topic of trash talk, when is too much? When's that line crossed? Interesting takes on that on social media with LSU and Iowa for the women's title game yesterday. Hail Varsity continues, presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks for spending time. Hail Varsity Radio. We're 25 minutes away from Charlie McBride, a Monday with Charlie. The Blackshirt Hour continues with Jay Moore. The topic of Dylan Raiola sounds like, looks like, feels like Georgia is it right now. Not an official commitment, but an official visit date for Dylan Raiola to Georgia. You have the reality of them being really good at having dudes around whoever their quarterback's been. They've won 2 national championships. They have an elite defense. They have a really good offensive line. They've got elite skill guys to the tune of Nebraska's taken some guys that are really, really talented that had roles but weren't starting roles per se. So this is a tough pill potentially for Nebraska fans and the staff to swallow if they don't get Dylan Raiola. And the race ain't over, and it really kind of comes down to, do you get an official visit? You'll probably still get an official visit from Dylan Raiola. He's been up here 100 times. Matt Rule and the staff have done everything in their power to put their best foot forward to get the number 1 player in the country. What the program isn't right now is where USC is, or for sure where Georgia's at. And you can't compete with that right now because you don't have a season under your belt, or you don't have 2 seasons under your belt. What you can show is a plan. Here's what I firmly believe with Matt Rule. Matt Rule, whether you're 5-star or no star, walk-on or talented offensive lineman that may be under the radar, a 3-star, or even a high-profile big dog, Matt Rule is going to get you in here. You're going to see what he's about, and he's going to tell you, go where you're going to be happy. That is Matt Rule's message in recruiting. We like you. We think you'd work here. It'd be really fun. But he's not going to sell you. He's not going to talk you into it. He's going to let you make your own call. And that may not end up being what Dylan Raiola wants to do. I hope Dylan Raiola goes wherever and kills it wherever. If that's Georgia, that's big time. You're going to have folks out there saying, well, he doesn't want to compete. No, you don't. If you pick Georgia, you're going to get over-recruited, if that's possible. Georgia's going to go after another stud quarterback at some point, or they have some on the roster now. USC has a 5-star. They're waiting in the wings to follow Caleb Williams, the Malachi kid. So Nebraska has done everything in their power to try and show what they're about, and they've got to fall in a first year to also show what's up. But if they don't get Dylan Raiola, life has to go on. And you hope it goes really well for the Raiolas, and you hope it goes really well for Dylan at Georgia. Good for him if that's where he ends up. And you hope Nebraska's got a plan B. Dante Reno could be that plan B. 4-star quarterback out of an academy. His dad's the head coach at Yale. And he's a dude that committed to South Carolina. He loves Satterfield. Satterfield's no longer at South Carolina. There's also the portal. You've got a guy that started a bunch of football games in Casey Thompson. Coach Rule said, let's go get Sims because I think that dude can ball. Okay? They'll figure it out. And Nebraska, as Rule said it, we're going to win now, and we want to win with you.
And you can also look back at the history of Nebraska football, particularly I look at the Bo Pelini years. You don't need an elite quarterback to go win football games. And we've had this conversation before, Schmitty. I think you need a high... It really
helps, and it takes you from good to great.
I think you need a high-level quarterback to go compete for a college football playoff. I think you need a high-level quarterback. Now we've seen the Big Ten. If you want to go seriously compete for a Big Ten crown...
How many games did Iowa win last year? They win 9 still?
Iowa won 7, I think. Right? Let's look it up.
I don't know. I think they were on the verge of 9 or 10.
Did they get 8?
They might have got 8. Sorry to put you on the spot there.
I got it pulled up in front of me. They got 8.
Yeah, they got 8. They got 8.
Well, they got 7 in the regular season and an 8th in the bowl game.
Sure, but they got 8 last year. They got 10 the year before with that quarterback play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the other side of that coin is you mentioned elite. They had an elite defense. They had an incredible defense. So, to your point, it can absolutely be done without an elite quarterback. Who was the cat in the 2009 season? for Nebraska, the quarterback.
Zach Lee.
Yeah, Zach Lee, good dude. Had some talent, clearly talent enough to be a Division I quarterback.
Much better quarterback than I'll ever be.
Right, same here, sitting in this.
I don't want to sit here and throw stones.
Sure. But you saw, you saw. Think about the offense. What it would have been in 2009 if you still had Joe Gans, for God's sake. If you had that defense with Joey Gans slinging the football, or you had Taylor Martinez with that defense.
Well, even you look at Taylor Martinez, not an elite quarterback either.
No, but an elite football player,
elite athlete.
Yeah, no,
very high level athlete. But this is what I'm saying. Like, would Dylan Raiola help Nebraska's rebuild? Yes, but. Is it a tough sell now? Yes.
And you're going to have to keep building whether you got elite products or not.
It's a tough sell now, and a high-level quarterback is just, in terms of what Nebraska needs in its entire rebuild, is not priority number one. Is it a nice luxury to have?
It's a perception thing as well.
Could it accelerate the rebuild? Sure. But having a quarterback, Nebraska's not one piece away from going and being in the college football playoff.
Absolutely. They're not at the point right now where they're just a quarterback away. There are a lot of things and a quarterback away from being somebody that can talk about a conference championship. Well, what's the acceleration period, and does a quarterback help do that? Absolutely, it can.
Well, and that's why we've had the conversation. Like, if Dylan Raiola came to Nebraska, would he have been the most important recruit in Nebraska football in the last 20 years?
Yes.
Easily, no doubt. You could argue.
Who else he brought with him?
And you could have argued of all time as well. You could have made that argument, especially more for me now, who wasn't alive to see the 90s. Like, you can make that argument, but if you lose Dylan Raiola, it's not a massive recruiting loss. Both of those things can be true. That it would have been a huge recruiting win, but it's not a huge recruiting loss, so should he go to Georgia?
PR-wise, it hurts. It hurts because of the family connection. But listen, Nebraska's not even in this without Donnie. Mm-hmm. Period. Nebraska's not even in this without Dom's time in Lincoln and how much he loves the football program. Raiola's got to do what's best for them and their kid. And if that is Georgia right now because they're championship caliber, if that's because there's better talent around immediately, championship talent around, then go do it. And if that's what it turns out to be, good luck, man. Go kill it and be holding that number one pick jersey up with the commissioner. I mean, have all the success in the world wherever you end up. Nebraska's going to have to figure it out with or without Dylan Raiola, and they're going to figure it out by doing what they've been doing on Saturday. That's hitting the hell out of one another and practicing hard.
I mean, what good is it to have the nicest interior on your home in the worst neighborhood in town? That's kind of how I feel like it is. And
you're going to spend
maybe
a lot of money
analogy
on security and puppies.
Yeah, but is it what you need right now? No, your step one should be getting out of that bad neighborhood and getting into a better neighborhood.
and have fun, because the mortgage rate right now.
Yeah. Would you rather spend money on that brand new couch from wherever, or would you rather save that money up and move yourself to a nicer neighborhood?
I love the analogy there, because you may have the best, one of those couches. I saw this advertisement, and it's got built-in speakers, and it's got a massage in it. But if there's a drive-by every Friday night in your neighborhood, that couch is getting damaged. It just is. All right, we'll wind down this first hour. Charlie McBride's coming up. Hail Varsity continues. We're presented by Currency.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Charlie McBride shortly. Reminder to get buckled up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives, prevents injuries only if properly worn. Buckle up. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Who's on the horn?
Well, I got him on the line and he hung up. So if you're calling us from New Mexico and you'd like to still go on the line, give us a call back. We'll get you right back here. I'm not sure if the call dropped or what.
His nickname's Lobo?
No.
He
didn't want to talk some more Dylan Raiola, though. And
okay.
We're talking in the break, and he had some good points to bring up, so I'd love to have you back on the line if you have time to call us back.
489-1240, no worries. The Iowa-LSU National Championship game, LSU flexing 102-85, and caught a little bit of it and caught more of the incineration on Twitter towards all sorts of things, be it the officials, be it Caitlin Clark, be it Reese. I mean, listen, this was tough to watch if you're an Iowa fan, there are a number of Nebraska fans, and there's just a number of basketball fans that they salivate at Caitlin Clark's ability. She's awesome. I mean, it's been said. It's generational. She can elevate the women's game similar to what Magic and Larry did. I believe that, and she's that incredible. She's also, and some of the Iowa fans I've talked to admit that she's a bit too cocky. She's a bit of a hothead. So when it comes to Reese and how things ended, there's been a bit of a double standard with, well, there was no blowback when Caitlin was, whether she was taunting or not, South Carolina, Iowa fans are saying, no, she was doing that to her own bench. Well, it was perceived that she was taunting South Carolina, or she's been a bit of a hothead against Louisville. The technical foul was kind of a joke, but there was clearly frustration on her part where she rolled the ball away from the officials in a 9-point ball game. I mean, that was a big possession where a tech was called, and if you're the official, you just have some restraint and don't call that.
You just understand it's a national championship game, and some of that needs to be adjusted whenever you have the high pressure in the
She shouldn't roll the ball that way because she got pissed about a call. In the same sense, realize the emotion attached with it. This was Iowa's coach after the loss, and this is Lisa Bluter, asked about the officiating.
Yeah, I can't comment on the officials. It's very frustrating because I didn't even feel like I could talk to them, like they wouldn't even listen. That's what's frustrating, is that there wasn't even a conversation that could be had. But, when your two seniors have to sit on the bench and, I know they don't know they're seniors, I get it, but I don't know, those two women didn't deserve that. I just don't think so. And then Caitlin getting a tee, I don't know. It's too bad because, it's just too bad.
You had Kim Mulkey on the floor, LSU's coach for most of it. This was Angel Reese afterwards, and Angel's been the same player forever. Pretty full of swag, and by the way, 40 double-doubles this season.
I'm happy. All year I was critiqued about who I was. The narrative, I don't fit the narrative. I don't fit in the box that y'all want me to be in. I'm too hood, I'm too ghetto. Y'all told me that all year. But when other people do it, y'all don't say nothing.
That was Reese in the post-game podium. Charlie McBride's up, Hour 2 on the way.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Thanks for spending time on a Monday. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. The Blackshirt Hour upon us. Mr. Blackshirt himself, Charlie McBride. A Monday with Charlie. Coach, how we doing? How was the weekend?
Good. It was great. We just got back from Arizona. My son David flew back with us, and he's taking care of us. He's babysitting the old people. You would have seen us go through the airport. It was a joke.
Well,
Charlie, do you think it's better?
We can't do it. We have to drive from now on. We can't go in airports.
Well, what do you think the worst, I don't want to say punishment is, but babysitting? Would you rather babysit a baby or an old person? Which is more difficult?
Well, it's just suitcases get heavier as you get older, and people, when they talk to you, they don't talk where you can hear them.
Sure.
And there's, I don't want to write down all of the things wrong, but we're not real good. We're not real good at it. Whatever it is, it's not. I'm better off right where I can, know everybody, see everything, and know how many steps I have to take to get to my bed.
No, I get it. Well, the sense of humor with this is admirable, Coach. I appreciate it, and I'm glad you're back in Michigan, and I'm glad you got some sunshine in Arizona. I want to ask you about an announcement Trev had last week, and you got to work a lot of years with Coach Solich, and then you stayed a couple of years as defensive coordinator after Coach Osborne left. So your thoughts on Frank coming back and getting honored?
Well, I'll tell you what, Frank's a special guy, I think. And I worked with him as an assistant coach, and I don't think there was a better backfield coach in the country than that guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did a job on people that, he worked fundamentally, and he made them believe in what they were doing, and it all paid off. I think the end part, there was more things involved than people are saying, but I don't know. I don't know what they were, mm-hmm. But I mean, I just. When something like that happens, when he got let go. I had a tough time believing it, but you don't want to ever say something that you don't know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be great. I mean, I think it's going to be good for Frank, and he had a little kind of a bad feeling a little bit about Nebraska, and I think since he's retired. I think that's really kind of going away, and he doesn't deserve to be, shoved around or anything like that. He deserves the best. He was, the one thing that I admire. He was the oldest coach in the country last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was in his 70s and still coaching, and. And that he had a good staff and things like that. And, it just, I'm glad to see it happen.
Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. What was that like for you and for him really to keep on going after Coach Osborne stepped down, that transition process after what the team had done? I mean, 3 titles in 4 years.
Well, I was having some problems physically, and I talked with. In fact, I went into the office and talked to Tom, and he told me at that time that nobody really kind of knew that he was going to retire, and I thought maybe I might because of what I had going for me physically. But we talked it over, and he told me that Frank was going to take over, and and I was having a home build in Arizona. It worked out the way it worked out great because I think my last year we ended up second in one poll and third in the other, and we had a good year and stuff like that. And then, of course, I went away, but Craig took over, and they had one bad game, the whole thing, which, if it was me, I'd been history.
Wow.
I mean, they would have smiled while I left town, but football's a funny game. It's a game of execution, and if you really believe in that part of it, I think that you'll be successful. If you're a guy that's worried about yourself and how much this is going to cost and how much this I make and how much that, it doesn't. If you care about the players enough, and Frank did, and he was that kind of a coach. He coached in high school, and he knows what it is to, have to work really hard. And he won state championships. He did, I remember when Milt kind of told me about him when I was there, and we were talking about hiring him there, that he had worked in bowl games with him, the Shrine Bowl game and stuff, and what a good person he was, and so on and so forth. And Frank is loyal, he's a workhorse. He's a grinder. He's everything you want in a coach, and he's not. He doesn't have a big mouth like I do, I guess, if you want to say it easy. He's not a loud coach. He's
Sure.
just a football coach. He just he teaches, and boy, his backs they were good players. I mean, they made a difference in our football team. I don't think people know one thing, that in our offense, the hardest position maybe offensively, we always talk about how hard it is on being an offensive lineman, but I think our fullbacks were the hardest to teach, and he had that job.
Did a great job. A lot of great fullbacks. Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, a lot of good reviews from Matt Rule's scrimmage. Not that we got to see it, but those that did, and then his own words afterwards where he had everybody live, Coach. That means quarterbacks were live, quarterbacks were getting hit. There's some quarterback run game. And I want your thoughts on how he's preparing the guys. It shouldn't be as big a deal as maybe I've spent on it, but it's different, and it's different in a good way because, I mean, he's trying to that's part of the development, isn't it? Is having guys live, not being crazy with hurting people, but you got to get them bloodied a little bit.
You got that marked down. I had a chance to talk to Terry Keneally today for a while. His son's going to walk on, and
good.
Terry and I talked for about an hour, and he was down there. He's really impressed with the scrimmage. And I asked him how my favorite player was doing, and all I'll say is he's from Kearney. That I always thought he had something special going. And
okay.
I remember when he said he kind of liked what he did, and I don't know how the scrimmage went because I didn't see the film. I know it went well, and I know there was a lot of support there, for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that he's doing the right things. I mean, from what I can gather from talking to other players, and that's, young people tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Older guys like me are full of baloney. I think sometimes I try not to. I'll tell you the truth. I mean, I spoke to the Huskers in Arizona, which there's probably about 30, 40 people there, and it was pretty exciting for me. But those people were so interested in what was going on, and I felt a little at fault, because I didn't know. I know a little bit about the staff and stuff like that, but I think that this weekend what Terry was telling me is that there was a nice, good vibes with the other guys that played there before, and that's important. I know they did the same thing with Scott, but I think there's so many other things that are involved when a guy looks at somebody, and so we'll see what happens. But I think when you take the one thing Terry said to me that meant a lot. He said they didn't baby the quarterbacks. They ran the football, and they got the snot knocked out of them, and they got hit, and they did good things, and and that's what we did, and that's what what made our offense. I mean, I think that we didn't try that. We took care of each other.
Mm-hmm.
No low shots and all that. There's all kinds of things you can do, to be a better player. Sometimes you think you can blindside a guy and you don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, things like that.
Now, Charlie, we had a caller in last hour, Pete, who he didn't go on the air with us, but he wanted me to say that, Nebraska back in the day, the quarterbacks used to run the ball and be live during practice, and that's why they didn't get injured with more frequency than other guys in the team, because there's an element to taking hits in practice that leads you to be more resilient during a game. You think that's true?
Yeah. You're not kidding. I tell you what, you have to laugh at Tommy Frazier was probably one of the better all-time guys. Every scrimmage he used to come up to me and tell me, Coach, we're going to kick your you-know-what. And things were kind of fun about it. But you know what, that kid, he got hammered. He got everything you could. He got just the same thing everybody else got. but he got it straight, and it made us all a better football team, and it made the defensive guys respect him more than if he had been more, I can't touch him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like that, I can't handle that one. I'd have a tough time in the NFL.
Yeah. Coach Rules reached out to Tom. He's reached out to Bo. He's reached out to Frank, guys that have won in Lincoln. How did you do it? That's what's that about? What's that mean to former coaches, and what's it say to you?
First of all, it shows me that he's not a jealous person. That he's not saying that if I don't do it, I won't be like Tom Osborne. I won't be like, and Tom doesn't want it that way. He doesn't want it. He's trying to hide in the dirt, sometimes I say. And but he's trying to be, he wants the people of Nebraska to be, he wants to be part of them, not them part of him. He wants to be part of them, and he's trying to earn his stripes, and he's trying to do it with the best people he can find. And I think that eventually, once he gets a chance, I think the hard thing for him right now is there's so many guys that played here at Nebraska that want to talk to him, that because everybody's so busy, they don't get that chance.
Sure.
And so I think once that happens, once he gets a chance to sit down with a group of guys and just have a conversation, and that can happen after the season, and I'm sure he can arrange that himself, and Trev can, and it'll help so much more. I mean, I don't want to say anything about Scott, but I just think we assume too much a lot of times. And you can't ever assume too much, and if you take anything for granted, you're going to cut your own throat. So you got to work for every bit that you earn, and you can't things aren't just going to happen. But the one thing Nebraska has are their fans. Their fans are the best. I don't care. I've been all over this place. I've been here in Michigan where they hate Nebraska and they love their fans. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of a funny world, but and even in Colorado, I've got a lot of friends that say, "Hey, there's not. We could lose to Colorado 10 times, and Nebraska fans are still going to be the best people."
Charlie McBride's with us. Coach, enjoy being home, and make sure the boys get those wings cooked up for you, all right?
I'll do it. Give me a report on the next scrimmage, okay?
I will.
I'm going to try to get to the spring game.
Well, good. We'll have to get you some wings then. That'll be good.
And I'll be a nice person, too, if I'm there.
I'm sure you will. That's pretty good. Charlie McBride's with us. Coach, you take care. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thanks, guys, for having me. Okay. Bye now.
There he is, Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride. Pretty good stuff. And old Terry Keneally. Love that name. Big-time defensive lineman, Hyannis, Nebraska. And Charlie getting the lowdown there. And loved his thoughts on, as a guy that has had former coaches and people that have been brought in here, and there's been so many staff members post-1998. His take on Rule reaching out is pretty good stuff. Podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. You catch just part of Charlie, or you want to go back, check out the Hail Varsity podcast, the Coach McBride segment. Full show also available, and, of course, streamed on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Jay Moore's next.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Back with Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer, co-host Big Red Wrap-Up. Find him on Twitter at JMoore44. Jay, how was the weekend? Thanks for catching up.
The weekend was good. Got a little golf in, and then, was just able to. Yesterday was so great here. I'd be in the 70s and sunny and no wind. Usually this time of year when it's 7 degrees, you get 40, 50 mile an hour winds, and you're holding on to everything you got to not blow away. But this weekend was great. It was fantastic.
How many Skittles did you win?
There's a few won, but we had to. It ended up being a wash. Played with a buddy. He hosted. So after everything, and we figured out all the drinks we put on his account, that it would just be a wash. Just call it an even swap.
Well, good work.
Yeah.
Real good work.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, it's been a little bit, but I wanted to get your reaction and take on Coach Solich. I know you were part of his recruiting class, and you played for Coach, and now he's going to be honored in 2 weeks. Your thoughts and your connection with Coach Solich?
Yeah, it's obviously long overdue. I know he's been retired for maybe 2 or 3 years now, I believe. So, he's been busy. All right, I think if he had retired, 10 years ago or whatever it may be, he probably would have still been honored around that, I would think. And I know he probably doesn't want it. He's not asking for it or wanting to be recognized, but it's definitely long overdue. I mean, being able to, play here, be an assistant coach for so long in all those great years we had here under T.O., and then obviously have the next man in line to take over after Tom, and then he was the last head coach when Nebraska won a conference championship in 1999, and then obviously didn't have the chance to be able to be recruited by him and just get to know the man and understand what he was all about. I mean, Schmidt, you could have been the head coach at Nebraska, and I was still going there no matter what. So,
well, thank you.
That could either be a diss or a compliment, depending on how you take it.
I'm going to say it's a compliment. I'm going to say it's a compliment.
But no, he's such a good man. Obviously, I was not a fan of his firing after the 2003 season. Too many people who had their hands in the cookie jar or amongst the program who were just they were so short-sighted. And I know that after the previous year, 2002, was not what people wanted. I mean, 7-7 after losing to Miami the year before in the national title game, and obviously some changes were made. And I think he got told some things needed to get changed, and he did. And had to Dan Young, Milt Tenneper, George Darlington, those guys were no longer on the staff. He brings in Bo Pelini and Barney Cotton and Marvin Sanders. All these guys who were fantastic coaches. And you lose 3 games. You lose to Texas, K-State,
Missouri
that year, and then the Missouri game was a game that we had to lead in. Texas was great. I mean, Texas wins the national championship. It's a couple years later. Vince Young was on that team, was a quarterback. I think he was a freshman or a redshirt freshman in 2003. Then K-State won the Big 12 championship in 2003 with Darren Sproles, and I can't remember who the quarterback would have been at the time.
L. Roberson.
But yeah, there you go. And so obviously you lose to good teams, and it just Steve Peterson came in there, and I know he had his own plans, but I would have loved to have seen that staff stay together for beyond that 2003 season, because then you had Bo with that defense and how good it was in 2003, leading the nation in turnovers, and you had everyone was coming back. I think you lost Trevor Johnson, and you lost Daniel Bullocks. You lost Josh. We lost Josh Bullocks. Yeah, and he had almost 10 interceptions that year. Just it would have been fun to see that go on with that defense under Bo, and obviously see this offense go forward with Joe Daly at quarterback and run an offense what he was made to run, an option offense, not a West Coast pro style offense. That was not what Joe was made to do. So would have loved to seen it to go through and play my whole time with Frank, but obviously that wasn't the situation. But it's been. I'm happy that they found the time to recognize him. He deserves it. He deserves all the recognition and the accolades and the fanfare. And I know he doesn't want it, but he definitely deserves it. And I'm glad they're able to. It'd been nice to even do it during a home game, the game during the fall. But the spring game will be perfect. And like I said, it's just been long overdue. It was. you can call it the curse that's kind of been haunting Nebraska here the last 20 years was the firing of Frank Solich, because I still don't think it ever should have happened. But it kind of is what it is, and hopefully we've learned our lesson and gone through all the pains and struggles, and we kind of put this behind us, and hopefully getting him here and recognizing him will, kind of release that curse off, or get that monkey off our back going forward with Coach Rule.
Jay Moore's with us here. It's Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, let's shift gears, talk Saturday's scrimmage. And I just want to get your take as a former defensive end. What would your reaction been if you would have showed up for a practice or a scrimmage and you learned that the quarterbacks are fair game, you can hit them today?
Well, we did. We actually had that a couple times. I think it would have been going into my junior year. That was the second spring ball with Callahan and company. And that was the first spring ball Zach Taylor was here. And we had a scrimmage in Memorial Stadium on a Saturday. And it was a long scrimmage. I think there was like 155 total plays that ran that day. Callahan, the defense, we kicked their ass offensively. We beat the hell out of them. And he was not happy with it. So he wanted the ones to go again. The ones, give me the ones, give me the ones. And we got to a point where I remember Kaz being like, we're off. You script your calls and you kind of what you want to run, or there's so many plays. He's like, we've been off the script. We've went over our allotted play calls like 30 plays ago. But I actually busted Zach's chin open. He had to get stitches. I caught him good. Came across. I caught the roommate good. We ran a little twist stunt, a TE where I come underneath, the tackle goes first, and I wrap underneath, and just came straight through it. It was kind of a newer thing we hadn't been doing yet, and I got him. I caught him just clean and busted his. I can't remember if his lint or his chip, or his chin or his lip. And his lip, it was blood all over his chin strap, and so we've got our fair share. That happened. That was great, but that was only the one time. That was the one time I can remember. And I think coach just wanted to find out who he had. Is Zach the real deal? And I think Joe saw the writing on the wall in that scenario, because I think Joe ended up coming out of spring, the third or fourth quarterback. And obviously he transferred, but yeah, that was the one time we had it, and that was the only time I was able to tackle Zach Taylor in practice.
So how did the moments, or dare I even say years, following the assault go? Or did he just get it because he's Zach Taylor, he knows it's football?
Well, I'm pretty sure if you ask him about it today, he still remembers, because I think he always gave me hell about it. There was a couple times, and I even think, I want to say that year in the spring game, all the quarterbacks were live except for maybe Zach, and maybe it was just with Zach. I don't remember. I can't remember, because I remember chasing down, a couple guys and taking them ground. But yeah, he still remembers it. And just kind of, I wasn't trying to bust his lip open, but you're just out there playing and competing, and I was just trying to get better and do my job, and just happened to catch him clean with a helmet. It probably, nowadays it's probably a penalty.
Probably.
Probably targeting or roughing the passer.
Yeah. Is there any quarterback that you played with that you liked taking down?
All of them.
Okay, that's fair enough. You're not gonna single anybody out. They all suck.
Well, you have to think about it as the converse being, anybody you really like taking down. I mean, there's people out there that he doesn't like taking down, and as a defensive end, come on, like you want to get every. I'm just
saying, was there a little fervor to get after Harrison just because he was kind of wacky?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
I think that might have been it's been some time ago, but that does remind me. I think now this would have been going into my senior year, so that our last spring ball. I do believe there was another time where QBs were live other than Zach, and I think Harrison was live. And I remember Adam Carricker and I, we both came free, but he rolled to Adam's side, and Harrison faked a hamstring injury so he didn't get hit. I'm sure Harrison remembers that too, because he was going to get murdered one way or the other. And I'm pretty sure he threw the ball on the ground and ended up totally faked the hamstring injury.
My hammy.
Yeah,
my hammy.
Don't hit me. Hey, don't. He pulled the little brother route, and you're about to pound on him.
Mm-hmm.
Says makes up some excuse or yells for mom essentially to save him. That's what Harrison did in that situation.
Jay Moore's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Jay, do you get the feeling, and these are some of the comments that Rule had, and I'm just going to put a little synopsis of it together, but his words Saturday were all guys who played for whichever coach. They're all Huskers. That's his take on things. So it's not, okay, you're Frank's guys or you're Bo's guys or you're all of our guys because you played for Nebraska. And he was very complimentary of everybody who's been here since TO. And there's a conscious effort, I think, to kind of unify the different factions. That you might be I don't know if there's a lot of Riley guys out there, but there's still a lot of Bo guys. There's still a lot of Frank guys. Man, there's still some, they're not as vocal anymore, but some Frost guys. Just that's not just who played for, but even the fan base. You know what I'm saying? With the bringing everybody together. That's the vibe, at least, that he's putting out there, and the doors are open to all of you guys, all the former guys, to come back, and he wants to meet and greet you.
Yeah, I haven't. I've Keith Williams, who a fantastic offensive lineman at Nebraska, and was able to play in the pros, and I overlapped with Keith for 1 year at Nebraska. He's kind of the player liaison with the former players, and I've gotten a handful of emails from him already this year, just offering availability to come and watch practice, and if you can. And I know if you're in, there's a lot of former players that are doing podcasts and television and radio, and he did say if you're doing those, you have to kind of get it approved still. But the effort's there. I think it's just it's hard. It's hard to get down there to watch a morning practice. The weekend ones are obviously a little easier to get down to and watch, and I need to do a better job of getting down. But life gets in the way. You get busy and things get going. But I do think honestly, probably since I played, there has been. It wasn't great. It was easier for me to go back when Bo was there, when I was the head coach, because I played. Bo was there for 1 year when I was there, so there was a relationship. A lot of the guys on staff, were there when I was there in 2003. So that was that was easier. Riley, I don't know. I don't think they spent a whole lot of time, being around that staff. Did my best to get down a couple times, but even with Coach Frost, I tried to. I'm supporter of all of them, and I know there was kind of a side with between former players with Scott. Riley is what it is. Bo is what it is. And then if you played for Bill, as I did and a lot of guys did there in that time frame, you were kind of the first ones that were you weren't the Solitz TO guys. It was the first time that some people I don't want to say you're blacklisted by any means, but you were just kind of, you played for Bill. You're one of those guys. It was people try, and I'm not saying it was a bad ordeal, but it just, you're kind of earmarked. You played for one of the Callahans, and you played for Cosgrove, and a lot of people wanted to greatly. That was kind of the first time Nebraska football had issues really. In 2004 and then in 2007. Really only 2005 and 2006 were my successful years with under Bill. So ever since then, that you had the Callahan guys, and then you had the Bo guys, and you had the Riley guys, the Frost guys, now you have the Rule guys. So I think he is trying to do his best to bring everyone together, and it shouldn't have to be that way. It just needs to be. And he's trying to do his best. It's just hard. There's a lot of guys that come to this program to get them all together, and he's going to try to do his best. And I'm going to try to do my best to get down there. And they always, no matter who's going to be the coach, they're always going to have my support, and I want to see them succeed first and foremost.
Jay, what do you just make of the fact that at Nebraska, a Saturday morning scrimmage, there can be 100 former Husker football players that are down there watching practice. That's different than the other places Matt Rule has gone, and he seems to have handled that well. But just what is your reaction to the fact that there's still so much invested in this program from former players that you can get that many guys that'll come show up and watch a scrimmage?
Yeah, for sure. It's great. I mean, it's like I said, this place is different. It always will be different. I know the support has always been there, no matter what, no matter who the head coach is. Everybody that stepped foot on that turf from Memorial Stadium and put that helmet on at one time or the other wants this program to win and be as successful as possible. It didn't matter if you liked the head coach or not, you agreed with the athletic director or not, you wanted them first and foremost to win. There was still nothing better when Nebraska wins, especially if you don't live here, you're not, from the Lincoln, Omaha area, and you wear your Husker stuff around the next day or the next week because you're proud of it and you want to show it off that damn right Nebraska won, and you're happy for that. You want to show that off, and you're proud to be an alumni, and you're proud to show your support. And I feel like everyone's like that, and guys that I don't know. I've never been to other places. I don't know how other schools operate. I don't know how they are there practices, spring ball open to all former players? Is fall camp open to all former players? I don't know, but I know whenever we do have an open practice or whatever it is, they invite former players, there's always been 50 to 60 to 70 guys. It's great that we got 100 guys back at, just a little over a week ago. That's awesome, because I think the players want to support it. They want to, say, hey, we're here to support you, Coach Rule. We're here, just to do whatever you can, just to say, listen, we understand what's happened in the past, and we want to move forward and give you everything we got to show our support, to make sure that, that things get back to what a lot of these guys played in. I wasn't, didn't win any championships other than a Big 12 North division title when I was at Nebraska, and won one bowl game or a couple bowl games. But a lot of these guys know what championship football is and how championship practices are ran and how games are won, during the heydays. And that's I think you can get a lot of those guys back here and support it, and just anyone and everyone. That's a win-win. And like I said, I don't know how other programs operate, but it doesn't shock me that we get 100 plus former players back in a weekend to watch practice.
Jay Moore's with us, Blackshirt Husker NFLer at JMoore44 on Twitter, co-host of Big Red Wrap-Up. Jay will get you out. A thought with the offensive system for Nebraska, pro style under Satterfield, but they want to have that quarterback element of mobility, probably sprinkle in maybe a little bit of quarterback run. Thoughts on that from your side of the ball? How difficult can that make things if a guy can scramble, or he's just good enough to run it a couple, 3-4 times a game and just keep you thinking?
Yeah, that's a plus. The games where if you have statues, I don't feel like there's any more in football. There's not I know he just retired, but Tom Brady was a statue. Dan Marino was a statue. I'm trying to think back to other quarterbacks, but more and more quarterbacks are becoming more mobile and are better athletes and can run the ball, and especially in college football. So I know that dynamic. It does stress the defense out, because you have to play more honest. You have to control on your pass rush. You can't be out of control on your pass rush, because you can't let them break the pocket and you lose contain, and they can scramble for the first down, or the wide receivers can break open and break their routes off when a guy scrambles to his left or his right. So you have to play a little more under control. You can't just go out there and just free will it, and you'd like to as defensive guys to do that, but you have to respect it, and you have to probably just slow down just a fraction of a second longer sometimes, just to respect the mesh point on a zone read, or on a pass rush, just knowing that you cannot take a risk, maybe sometimes a rush inside the tackle or whatever it may be, and have the quarterback get over outside of you and run for the first down or complete a pass. So you just have to be a little more careful, and that sometimes that's all you need is a QB or an offense. You just need an inch or two either way, and that's the difference between maybe a 2-yard gain or a touchdown. So I love that aspect of it. I love having a mobile athletic QB that you can utilize and still continue to run the football and still continue to have that offense operate as efficiently as possible.
Jay Moore's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Jay Bird, enjoy your weekend of golf. We'll check in next week, get your take on the Masters recap. Okay, bud?
Sounds good. Thanks, boys.
Good to spend time with Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer. Find him on Twitter at JMoore44. He's going to get into some of the sunshine. Our dear friend Brennan out in western South Dakota, Mr. Black Hills himself. I love that part of the country. I want to get there, hopefully this summer for some baseball. Snow is starting to fall, 32 inches. Brendan, you can keep all that.
I think they have 3 different snow systems going through in the span of 48 hours, something like that. Oh, thank God that that's not Nebraska.
It's going to be 80 tomorrow.
Yeah, just take a trip on down to Lincoln, Brennan.
And quite frankly, I mean, you could hit one out of Wrigley with a wiffle ball if you get it into the wind just right tomorrow. Mm-hmm. That's the word.
Yeah,
but
poor Brennan, he's dealing with snow. Meanwhile, I'm dealing with a sunburn. It's Nebraska versus South Dakota for you, I guess.
That's okay. We'll take the sunburns. If you're on hold, stay there. We'll wind down on Monday. Busy show tomorrow. We'll put a bow on the college basketball season. A.D. Markowski with us tomorrow. Hail Varsity, winding down on Monday. We're presented by Currency.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Hail Varsity Radio. Busy show tomorrow. We'll have post-practice thoughts, some of Nebraska's assistants, some players available, and we'll be there. Connor Clark is going to hang up his Cubs jersey and join the party.
That'll be good.
Allegedly. We'll spend time with Andy Markowski. We are out to one Mr. Matt Schick. We shall see if he can squeeze in. If not, no worries, but a busy week. Will Compton tweeting out, I can't think of anyone excited to watch UConn San Diego State. That tips off at 8:20.
Well, we haven't talked about it once today.
We have had football to talk, and I love it. But you've got some – UConn's a team that's working on a 4th title in 25 years.
And I'm not
hating San Diego State either. I hope Arope gets a title for South O, man. That'd be great.
Yeah, and I'll be watching the game, but it's again, he's got a great point. I'm not excited to watch it. And whenever there were people posting about that when the Final Four started, ratings going to be bad this year because there's no 1 seeds, there's no perennial blue bloods that are there, so it's not going to get the interest of the national media.
You don't have,
and I sat there and I said, I think that's crazy. I think it's still the Final Four, but now we've reached the championship game, and I do go, well, I don't care to watch it all that much, even though I will.
Will Compton's tweet, that was only half of it. I can't think of anyone excited to watch UConn San Diego State tonight. March Madness ended yesterday after the real championship game. You had LSU. You had Reese. You had Mulkey and her buzz and history on top of whatever the hell she was wearing. It was a... The sport coat was interesting. But she can do what the hell she wants. She's won 4 titles. And then you had Caitlin Clark. So you had the star power yesterday, 9.9 million. Outviewed the Orange Bowl and Sugar Bowl. That's what the yesterday's championship game. And the 2:30 time slot, should they have done 7 p.m.? They could have. But 2:30, I mean, everyone checked it out yesterday.
At least they put it on a Sunday instead of a work night.
Yeah. On a Tuesday, you mean?
Like a Monday night.
Well, usually it follows the men's title.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But the men's title game, they've been doing it for football, they've been doing it for basketball. Why is it on a Monday night? People have to get up early the next day. No one's going to stay up for that. It's terrible. It's stupid. Put it on a weekend.
Well, yeah, do a Saturday, Sunday. I guess you could. I know you did the Final Four on Saturday.
Well, move that up, put that Friday night, and then put your championship game on Sunday.
Well, is Friday night still a good night for TV, or are people out doing?
I think if it's the Final Four, I mean, people make time on a Monday to watch the championship
Here's
game.
your difference.
You might as well put it on a Sunday when people have nothing going on.
Your difference right now is in the women's game, you have the Caitlin Clark star power. You've got Reese. You've got LSU. That's a team you love or you love to hate. And some people love to hate Iowa and Caitlin Clark, too. Hate's a strong word. Sorry. They're not fans of. They appreciate the talent.
Well, it's the same way people hate Christian Laettner.
Sure. No, fair take. That's what I told Carol this morning but you had the star power. You had the incredible talent. You had two folks that you cheer for if they're on your team. But if you're playing against them, they drive you nuts. And it culminated in really high-level basketball in a tough title game. It was, kind of a blowout. But you had some storylines, you had some momentum, and you got a number. You got a monster viewership, and good for women's basketball. And I hope it continues to grow.
And with the men, now you have the top players every single year. They go to the G League instead of going to college basketball.
That's
anymore.
the difference. You've got the Caitlin Clarks and, of course, the Angel Reeses still at their school, and you get one and done for years. We'll be back at you at 4 tomorrow. Thanks.